Hey everybody, I'm Dan Fellows and welcome to the second part in our two-part series on dialing in the SlayerESpresso. So in the first video, we covered some techniques that you could use from getting a brand new machine or even a brand new coffee into a really great place. We set our needle valve, which I select dependent on the roast and intensity of the coffee. We selected a brew recipe to give us a really great body. And we also set our grinder to give us a total contact time of between 45 and 55 seconds, which will give us a really good start-in taste balance. If you haven't had a chance to watch this video yet, I'd recommend jumping back, giving it a watch and rejoining from this point. So today we're going to be delving even deeper and really fine-tuning the taste balance of our shots using some interesting techniques on the machine. And after this, we'll look at the clarity and intensity of the shots to really give ourselves the best chance of creating the best espressos we're possibly capable of making. So first, I'm going to be talking about a technique called extended saturation. So extended saturation, or extended pre-brew, is a technique where we extract a small amount of the shot in the pre-brew position before moving into full brew. I'd always recommend starting with a small amount, and this should slightly decrease the perceived acidity and increase our perception of sweetness in the shot. So I'd start with maybe between 2 and 5 grams of extraction in the pre-brew position, give it a taste, and you can slightly increase this even further, which will have a more significant impact on the reduction of acidity of the shot. So give this a go, have a little taste through the different ranges of extended saturation and see which works for you. So whereas extended saturation is a really great way to reduce the acidity and allow the sweetness to really shine through, if we actually want to increase the acidity and vibrancy, we can use a technique called bump. So when we bump, we actually move the actuator into the full brew position before pulling back into the pre-brew position and then extracting as we normally would for a Slayer shot. This is a really great way to increase that acidity, the vibrancy and the brightness of the shot, and it really perks up some coffees that might be slightly underwhelming or lacking that kind of fruit-forward character. So I'd recommend using this whenever you find you want to really boost that acidity, and it's a really helpful technique to have in your locker. So now we've really refined the taste balance of our espressos, the final thing we want to have a look at is the clarity and intensity of our shots. So if we have a really delicious espresso, but we find it's just slightly lacking in clarity, you do have the option to slightly tweak your needle valve flow rate by taking off the cup tray and turning your needle valve. I'd recommend starting by reducing our flow rate by around about 5 grams of water per 30 seconds and giving it another taste. And this should really add amazing definition and clarity to your espresso. On the other hand, if your shot is slightly too intense and a little bit spiky, we have the option to use a technique called decline. So decline is where you follow the usual procedure for saturating the shot that you would for a Slayer shot, but in the last part of the extraction, you actually back off back into the pre-brew position for the final part of the extraction. This tends to give a really nice reduction in intensity, and any kind of spiky or roughness that you might find maybe from a fresh coffee or from a very vibrant coffee is really reduced and gives a really nice softness and roundness to the shot. So I'd recommend giving this technique a go. And when you've taken all of these things into account, you should have a really delicious espresso. So there we have it, the process that I follow to dial in the SlayerESpresso and the Slayer single group. I start by setting my needle valve dependent on the intensity and roast of the coffee. I'll then select a brew recipe of dose and yield that gives me the body that I'm really looking for from that particular coffee. I'll set my grinder to give me a total contact time that gives me the taste balance that I want to then fine-tune using machine-based techniques. We could use extended saturation to slightly reduce the acidity and increase our perceived sweetness. Or we could use bump, which will slightly increase that acidity and give us more vibrancy in the shot. And once we've got a taste balance that we're really happy with, we'll have a look at the clarity and intensity of the shot. Either slightly reducing our needle valve flow rate to increase that clarity and definition in the shot, or using a technique called decline, which will soften off that intensity and really round out the espresso. So that's how I do it. I really want to hear how you do it. And make sure you visit the SlayerESpresso website, which has a really useful flowchart, which outlines all of these steps that these videos are based on. So I look forward to hearing from you soon, and thanks very much for watching.